Banks predict soaring inflation. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian Heiser here, and welcome to another episode of Heiser Says. Grab your stein of coffee. We're going to look at this article written by Samantha Maiden from news.com.au about ANZ predicting inflation could soar as high as 5% in the coming year. Now, I don't know about you, but 5%, it feels like we've had much higher inflation than that, and it depends on really what you consume, what your daily shopping is. Remember, the CPI, it's averaged of a typical basket of goods. But what if you're not typical? What if you're atypical? What if you decide for your health you do some kooky diet called carnivore like we do, so your meat goes up a lot. A lot. We're noticing the cost increases. But still, my 7-Eleven coffees are still only $1. So when they go up, lads, we know it's all over then. Maybe that's a sign of when we need to sell our gold and silver hoards. Forget about, Peter Schiff predicting it to go to 5,000. It's when that coffee, that $1 coffee goes to $2, then we've hit peak. Well, let's have a look at this. ANZ Bank predicts inflation could soar as high as 5% in the coming year. Inflation, yep. Australian families face a triple threat of rising inflation, low wage growth, and interest rate hikes, according to ANZ. That's an accurate risk. That's what's coming. I don't think we will not encounter this. You're going to have inflation going up. Wage growth, well, wages are growing, but it depends on your sector. You've got to understand. Here's the thing: when people are responding, seeing in the comments, people bitching about offshoring work or getting sent overseas, losing Australian jobs, you've got to understand, everyone is a globalist at the checkout. Okay? And you can't be angry at people for putting the needs of their family above others. That's what is meant to happen. Charity should begin at home. That's why I'm so frustrated at all these people who sanctimoniously try to, force the government to steal money off people to pay for things they think should happen. It's if you really dig into it, it's quite frustrating. I think most people don't appreciate it. They don't really understand it, or they don't actually have to pay the taxes themselves, because it's all pay as you go. So they don't understand. They've never actually physically had to send the money from their bank account over to the tax department. That makes a different experience. It frames your perception a little differently. So you got all these people, like there's another video, I'm not even sure if I'll do it. This is here in Queensland. The Queensland government is investing $2.5 million on tampons, free tampons for girls in schools. Now, okay, that's sure, as a father with several daughters, 4 daughters at the moment, that's going to be a cost of when they hit their teenage years that a burden you have to bear. Why is the tax man paying for it? The question should be, if people can't afford to buy these basic goods to maintain quality of life and health, what else is going wrong? It doesn't mean you need to steal money from people and give it to the goods to them for free, because you're essentially stealing people's labor and using it to buy sanitary products. But people won't see it like that. They'll just see, oh yeah, it's good, it's nice. Oh, these poor people need these products. Oh, they can't afford their $10 or $20 a month. Oh no. Oh wait, they've got all these cigarettes they have. Oh, that's strange. Anyway, once again, I've gone completely off topic. Let's get back to this. So, it's Saturday. I'm chilling. The big bank has made the ominous prediction in a new research paper that is forecasting much higher inflation than previous Reserve Bank predictions. Oh boy, wait a minute. The Reserve Bank getting a prediction wrong? Nah, we can't. That never happened. Never happened. I must have pressed the wrong button. How did this slide get up there? Now, the Reserve Bank's always right. Rising petrol prices, COVID-19 supply chain disruptions, the floods, and the war in Ukraine are all factors feeding into the pressure. We see headline inflation approaching 5% by mid-2022 as the impact of high petrol and food prices flow through, the report said. While this spike is not unexpected, as the RBA noted in recent commentary, it increases the peak and duration of higher inflation. Inflation last hit 5% in September, 2008 during the GFC. In recent years, it has plunged to historic lows, but experts warn that this time around the impact on household budgets would be tougher because the peak of inflation during the GFC was accompanied by wage increases. Here's a question. If they actually recorded housing correctly in inflation, in CPI, and the RBA had been closer to their target rate, so increased interest rates earlier, would the housing market have been overheated as much as it is? And would we be facing such an indebted society with our housing sector where they have to service these loans? Now, there are going to be some people that'll be in trouble once interest rates go up. There'll be others, and I think the majority will simply need to reassess their financial situation. And what was considered a necessity will essentially overnight will become a luxury. And that may even include taking little Jimmy out of private school. While inflation was at 5%, this time will be very different to last. APAC economist Callum Pickering told news.com.au. And the main reason for this is because before the GFC was being driven to a large extent by rising wages, whereas this time wage growth is still very low. And it's certainly not going to keep pace with inflation. So that's going to be tougher than the GFC. What it basically means is that what households can purchase with wages and salaries is going to go backwards. Well, yeah, inflation is the hidden tax, everyone. Mr. Pickering said it was a tough one for the Reserve Bank because the inflation pressures are coming in from overseas, and rising interest rates depending on how much the Reserve Bank does could potentially have a big impact on the sort of domestic production and jobs created as well, he said. So we're getting this overseas inflation, or overseas-driven inflation. Let's have a look here. We're also getting demand for our commodities, which is also representing in our dollar. And there we're sitting at 72 cents. So if that dollar shoots up even more, are there going to be calls for the Reserve Bank to raise rates even higher? What will that do for jobs in Australia? And what will that will mean? The closer we get to parity with the USD, the more cost effective it is to offshore service jobs. And now, if everyone's working from home, can you blame people? It's running a business is tough in Australia. Well, it's tough everywhere. But if you can find one way to reduce your costs. So, the good news is it increases the likelihood of tax cuts and one-off payments in the March federal budget. See, we don't want these one-off payments. We want some significant tax cuts. And then we'll see article after article of journalists explaining that the rich are getting more of a saving in tax. It's so unfair. I don't know. I mean, it's just done for the clicks. It's just done to go off the class war here in Australia for views. It's pretty stupid. Federal governments have always liked to talk a big game around cost of living and doing things to address that. I certainly wouldn't be surprised if there are some temporary measures that might be introduced, perhaps to alleviate some of the pressure. It could be payments and it could be tax offsets. There's a range of different sort of tools that could potentially be used. Hey. Are we gonna get Mortgage Keeper, everyone? Is Mortgage Keeper gonna materialize? Oh no. Now that's a joke for those of you watching at home that I've been saying for some time now that we've had, mortgage holidays, we've had Job Keeper. Next will be Mortgage Keeper, where they'll make direct payments to your mortgage to offset the increasing interest rate payments. I'm making that as a joke. I hope it stays a joke. I'm kind of scared that it won't. The ANZ report notes that the RBA has previously spoken about the psychology of inflation, that continual supply shocks put forward upward pressure on inflation. If this shift happens, then higher inflation would be more persistent and broad-based. Reserve Bank Governor Philip Lowe suggested on Friday that he is not feeling pressured to raise interest rates despite bank warnings. I don't feel pressure mounting, Dr. Lowe said. We do what we think is right at each of our meetings. So the pressure, it's great for media stories, but I don't feel that myself. Well, that's an interesting takeaway, guys. Let's have a talk about this. So the Reserve Bank doesn't care what the media is saying, what's going out in the public. They're just going to make their decision at the meeting. That makes perfect sense. You've got to remember, though, housing costs they're not part of the RBA's mandate, although they seem to have a huge impact of it. They're worried about wages, but as the dollar goes higher, the incentives for businesses to, stop using Australian labour will increase. It's going to be an interesting time, everyone. You should prepare yourself for increased interest rate costs. Your mortgage payments are going to go up. Your food costs are going to get more expensive. A way to suggest, I would suggest to save money, go OMAD. Try 1 meal a day, only eat once a day. Eat as much as you can, and then just fast for the rest of the day. So you reduce, how much food you need to buy. That's a great way to save money. Or even do a 5-day fast every now and then. Another way to save money. Can you imagine? Can you imagine going on the ABC or Q&A? Oh yeah, if people can't afford money, if they can't to save, just don't eat for a week. Can you imagine how many articles there are of some land whale who I had to skip a meal. Anyway, take care, guys. Have a great day. Let me know your thoughts on this one. What would your suggestions be to save money rather than skipping eating? That's probably too extreme for our Australian culture right now. But it's probably, you've got to remember, that body fat we all have, guys, that's an emergency supply. It's, emergency fund for tough times. We evolved to have those. The reason why we're so good at eating so much food and putting on all the kilos and storing it, it's because our ancestors were the fat bastards that survived those winners. It's an evolutionary benefit. So you got to see it as that. Take care, guys. Have a great day. If you want to support the channel and my general ramblings, there are a few ways you can. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. Sign up for Self Wealth or Stake, or use our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Aussie Broadband. Take care, everyone. Have a great day, and I'll see you at the next episode. We'll put some recommended videos down there. I'll probably put the buying meat in bulk one there. That's a good one to watch if you haven't done it. That's a great way to save some money. But meat's also getting expensive. You got to have a couple grand to drop in it. That's the problem. Take care. I'll see you next time.